Welcome back, everybody, to another Deep Dive. This time we're looking into Alan Watts's The Wisdom of Insecurity. And I know from our emails you're especially fascinated by this idea of the body's wisdom. You know how that plays into Watts's whole exploration of anxiety in modern life?
Yeah, it's really interesting, actually.
It is. It's a cool concept.
It is, especially because Watts himself didn't use those exact words, the body's wisdom. So it's kind of like we're doing detective work,
Yeah.
piecing together these clues from his writing
Mhm.
to see how this theme kind of emerges. You know, it's not like the central focus of the book or anything, but when he talks about living in the moment and trusting your intuition and questioning the dominance of logic, all of that kind of indirectly points to this recognition of the body having an intelligence.
Right. Okay, so the book is a collection of essays.
Yes.
And Watts was writing back in the 1950s.
hmm
This British philosopher who was really instrumental in bringing Eastern thought, especially Zen Buddhism, to Western audiences. But it's amazing how his observations about anxiety back then still resonate so strongly today.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah,
Wouldn't you say?
I'd say for sure. I mean, in fact, he starts the book with a chapter called The Age of Anxiety,
Uh,
and he has this vivid image of humanity as like adrift in this vast cosmic ocean,
oh, wow.
constantly trying to grasp for some kind of security amidst the changing waves of life,
That's such a powerful image.
isn't it?
It really is. It makes you feel that unease, like, that striving for something solid to hold on to when everything around you is in flux.
Absolutely.
But what does that adriftness actually look like, in our everyday lives? Like, how does this actually manifest in ways that we might recognize?
Well, think about it this way. How often do you feel a sense of lack? Like something is missing, even if you have everything you need.
All the time.
Right.
Yeah. And it can manifest in so many ways. It could be this yearning for more possessions or this pursuit of achievements or even just the general dissatisfaction with how things are right now.
Yeah, I think we can all relate to that to some degree, right? That
Yeah.
underlying sense that we should always be doing more,
Mm-hmm.
achieving more, being more.
Right. And this striving, this clinging to some external source of validation, this is exactly what Watts identifies as the primary source of anxiety. He says that the more we try to grasp and control, the more we're actually resisting the flow of life,
Right.
which is naturally impermanent and always changing.
So he's saying that instead of fighting against the current, we should learn to kind of swim with it,
Exactly.
embrace the uncertainty and the fluidity.
Yeah, and that's where I think that this idea of the body's wisdom is so potent.
Okay.
Because Watts, again, he doesn't use that term explicitly, but when he's talking about trusting your intuition, listening to that inner voice, these can be seen as pathways to tapping into the body's innate intelligence.
Okay, so how does the body actually communicate wisdom to us?
That's the question, isn't it?
Like, what are the signs, the signals that we should be paying attention to?
Well, think about how your body reacts when you're stressed or anxious. You might get tense muscles, a racing heart, shortness of breath even, digestive issues.
All the time. Yeah,
All the time.
right.
These are physical manifestations of that emotional state.
Yeah.
Your body is trying to get your attention, saying, hey, something's out of balance here.
It's like our bodies are sending us little smoke signals,
They are.
saying, danger, danger. But we tend to ignore them or
Yeah.
try to, like, suppress them with medication distractions.
Exactly. And that's where we're missing out on this valuable information that the body is giving us because, those physical sensations,
Yeah.
they're not just symptoms to be eliminated.
Oh.
They're actually messages
I see.
that need to be deciphered. They're clues to understand our underlying emotional and psychological patterns.
So instead of viewing them as the enemy to conquer, we should be trying to understand what they're trying to tell us.
Yes, it's like learning a whole new language,
Right.
the language of the body, to pay attention to these whispers, these nudges, and to recognize that the body often knows what's best for us,
Yeah.
even when our mind is saying something different.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this connects to the body's wisdom. But I'm also wondering how this all ties into Watts's critique of the Western concept of self.
Right.
He says this idea of the self as a separate, isolated entity is actually an illusion.
It is.
Right.
And that's a huge part of the problem.
Okay.
Because this perceived separation, this feeling of being cut off from our bodies and from the world around us, that's what contributes to the anxiety and the insecurity.
Makes sense.
It makes us believe we're alone, responsible for everything, constantly under threat.
Yeah.
It's not true, though.
So it's like we've created this artificial barrier between our minds and our bodies. And that separation is fueling the anxieties.
Exactly. And Watts, he draws upon Eastern philosophies, especially Zen Buddhism, to illustrate how everything is interconnected.
Right.
It's not an inherent truth that we're separate. It's just a story we tell ourselves
Wow.
that creates this sense of alienation and fear.
So how do we break free from that illusory sense of separation?
That is the million-dollar question.
How do we actually experience that interconnectedness in a tangible way?
Well, that's where the body can be such a powerful guide.
Okay.
By tuning into those physical sensations, paying attention to the subtle rhythms and flows,
Right.
we can start to dismantle that wall between the mind and body and experience a much deeper connection with ourselves and the world.
So it's like we're relearning how to be fully present in our bodies.
Yes.
To experience the world through our senses instead of through that filter of thought.
Exactly. And that's what brings us to one of Watts's most important ideas: the power of living in the present moment.
Right. Let's talk about that, because he emphasizes that when we're fixated on the past, regretting mistakes, clinging to memories, or when we're consumed by worries about the future, we miss out on the richness of the present.
Mm-hmm.
But how does this tie into the idea of the body's wisdom?
Well, where is your body always located?
Right here, right now.
Right here, right now. When you think about it, the body is always in the now. It's experiencing life as it unfolds, moment to moment.
Yeah.
It doesn't dwell on the past. It doesn't worry about the future.
So in a sense, our bodies are already masters of present moment awareness.
They are.
It's our minds that are pulling us out of the now.
Exactly. And that's why paying attention to those physical sensations can be so powerful.
Okay.
Turning into the subtle nuances of your breath, your posture, the feeling of your feet on the ground, we shift our attention away from the mental chatter and come back to that felt sense of being alive in this moment.
He has that analogy of a musical performance. To explain this, it's like if a musician is too caught up in the notes they already played or the ones that are coming up, they can't fully improvise and be present in the music.
That's it. And that applies to life too, right? If we're fixated on the past or the future, we're missing the opportunity to fully engage with this moment, to respond to the challenges and the opportunities with spontaneity.
So is he saying we just stop thinking altogether?
No, not at all. It's not about rejecting the intellect, but about recognizing its limitations.
Okay.
He cautions us about this overemphasis on logic and reason.
Right.
Because sometimes it can actually create a barrier between us and the natural flow of life.
So it's about finding that balance.
Yes.
Where the mind and body work together.
Exactly. And this is where it gets really interesting, because Watts suggests that sometimes our thoughts can trap us in this cycle of anxiety that prevents us from experiencing the world. Like, we're getting in our own way.
I think we've all had those moments, right?
Right.
Where you just overthink something to the point of paralysis.
Yeah.
You create problems that aren't even there.
Absolutely. And so cultivating a mindful awareness of our thoughts and emotions becomes crucial. Watts talks about the ego, which he means as this tendency to over-identify with our thoughts and create this false sense of separation.
So not rejecting thoughts altogether,
No.
but learning to kind of observe them without judgment. See them as just passing phenomena rather than some fixed truth.
Yes, precisely. And that allows us to loosen the grip of the ego, become more open to wisdom that arises from a deeper, more intuitive place, which is often aligned with the body.
That makes me think about meditation. Isn't that a core practice in Zen Buddhism?
It is.
A way to quiet the mind and connect with that awareness.
Exactly. And Watts frequently talks about meditation
Yeah.
as a way to cultivate this mindfulness. By quieting the mind, turning your attention inward, we become more attuned to those subtle sensations and wisdom of the body.
I've heard it described as dropping out of your head and into your body, which sounds a little intimidating.
It does.
Like, I don't know if I can do that.
But it doesn't have to be this drastic shift.
Yeah.
It's just gently shifting your focus
Right.
from the chatter of the mind to that felt sense of the body. That aliveness and wisdom within each breath, each movement, even a few minutes of mindful breathing or gentle stretching can make a difference.
Okay. So finding those little moments throughout the day
Exactly.
where we can just pause, reconnect with our breath, and be present.
And the more we practice this, the easier it becomes
Okay.
to access that deeper awareness.
This is also fascinating. It's like we've been given this amazing internal compass, but we've forgotten how to read the directions.
Right.
And Watts's work, especially The Wisdom of Insecurity, reminds us to rediscover that compass, to trust those subtle whispers of our bodies and the wisdom they hold.
Indeed.
It's incredible how he weaves together all these threads: the body, insecurity, the present moment, the illusion of self,
Yeah. It's pretty amazing.
to create this rich tapestry of ideas.
It really is. And this is just the beginning. We've only just scratched the surface.
I know. I can't wait to dive deeper.
Mm.
But before we move on, I want to turn to you, our listener, and ask, what's resonating with you so far? Have you ever had an experience where you felt your body trying to communicate something? Maybe like a gut feeling or a physical sensation that you ended up ignoring. What happened?
Yeah.
I encourage you to take a moment to reflect on that. Because by paying attention to those experiences, we can begin to unlock the wisdom that our bodies hold.
Absolutely. Picking up where we left off, I'm reminded of one of Watts's most intriguing ideas, this whole concept of the wisdom of insecurity.
Right.
It seems like a paradox, doesn't it? How can insecurity be wise?
Yeah, it does feel counterintuitive, right? I mean, we're constantly told to strive for security,
Yeah.
certainty, control. But Watts is saying, no, look at insecurity as an inherent part of existence, something to embrace.
Exactly. He's suggesting that our very insecurity, our lack of absolute certainty, is actually what makes life so rich and dynamic. It's when we cling to this illusion of security that we actually close ourselves off to possibilities, to growth.
So it's like by trying to eliminate uncertainty, we actually kind of diminish our capacity to experience life fully.
Yeah, I think that's the idea. Imagine if we knew exactly how everything was going to turn out. No surprises, no challenges. Life would be pretty dull.
It would lose its sense of adventure, for sure.
Right. And this is where, again, the body can be such a great teacher. The body, unlike the mind, it doesn't cling to fixed ideas or expectations.
Right.
It's always in a state of change and adaptation, responding to what's happening around it. It's kind of the perfect model for how to navigate uncertainty.
That's making me think about how our bodies really do thrive on change and adaptation.
They do.
I mean, from a cellular level.
Yeah.
We're designed to be in flux. Cells are regenerating, muscles are rebuilding.
It's true. And yet, so often, we resist that flow.
We do.
Both physically and mentally. We try to hold on, maintain a sense of control, when really the only constant is change.
So maybe instead of building these fortresses of security, the real challenge is learning to dance with the unknown.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Embrace the fluidity.
Yeah.
Trust that our bodies, with all their innate wisdom,
Oh.
will kind of guide us through.
I love that. That's beautifully put.
I-
And this is where Watts's concept of letting go is so important.
Right.
He suggests that by releasing our grip on that need for certainty and just embracing the ever-changing nature of life, we become more open to new experiences, to possibilities, to joy even.
Okay. But letting go is scary.
Yeah.
I mean, it often feels safer to just cling to what we know.
Of course, it's understandable. But Watts's point is that true security doesn't come from eliminating uncertainty. It comes from finding a sense of peace within it.
I see.
It's about cultivating this inner resilience
Yeah.
that allows you to withstand the inevitable ups and downs.
So how does that tie back into this idea of the body's wisdom?
Well, think about it. The body is constantly teaching us about impermanence, about this flow and change that is life. Take the breath, for example.
Yeah.
It's this continuous cycle of inhalation, exhalation, expansion, contraction. The body never tries to hold on to a single breath. It just lets it flow.
That's such a beautiful metaphor for how we can approach life in general.
Isn't it? It's about trusting that even though things are constantly changing, there's an intelligence at work, this natural rhythm and flow that we can surrender to.
This makes me think about those moments when we feel most alive,
Yes.
most connected to ourselves and the world. It's often when we're fully immersed in something, playing music, dancing, creating art, even just being in nature. We lose track of time. The boundaries of self dissolve.
That's what psychologists call a flow state. And it's a perfect example of how the body's wisdom can lead us to a more joyful, fulfilling experience. In those moments, we're not overthinking. We're just allowing ourselves to be present, to move with that energy.
It's like our bodies intuitively know how to access these states of flow and joy, but our minds get in the way.
That's right. The doubts, the fears, the self-criticism, it blocks it all. And that's where Watts is so helpful.
Yeah.
He encourages us to question those limiting beliefs, challenge the voices that say we're not good enough, not creative enough, not worthy.
This is so empowering.
Yeah.
Like he's giving us permission to let go of all that striving and controlling and just embrace the unknown.
Yeah. That's the beauty of it. Watts's message is ultimately about freedom and acceptance. He's inviting us to step out of that mental prison we create for ourselves and into this fullness of experience
I love that.
where we tap into a well-being that's far greater than we can imagine.
Speaking of letting go, I wanted to touch on something we mentioned earlier
Okay.
about Watts's critique of the modern world's obsession with progress and achievement.
Oh, yeah.
Because this ties directly into his ideas about insecurity.
It absolutely does. He points out that this constant striving for more is a major source of our anxiety. We're always chasing some future goal, never fully present, never appreciating what we already have.
Right, it's like we're on this treadmill of becoming, always trying to become someone or something better, instead of just being.
That's it exactly. And that's where, again, the body's wisdom comes in. The body is always fully present, experiencing life as it unfolds, no judgment. It doesn't yearn for some future perfection.
I think that's such an important point to emphasize.
It is.
Because in a culture obsessed with productivity and achievement, it's so hard to slow down.
It is. It's almost radical to resist that pressure.
It is.
To do more, be more, achieve more. But Watts reminds us that happiness doesn't come from external validation or possessions. It comes from a deeper contentment and appreciation for what we already have.
I'm realizing that embracing insecurity, like Watts suggests, could be a path to a deeper kind of satisfaction.
I think so too.
Because it's in those moments of vulnerability, when we let go of control, that we experience true connection.
That's beautiful. It's a reminder that true strength doesn't come from building walls, but from having the courage to be open, to be vulnerable.
This all reminds me of Watts's analogy of life as a dance.
Oh, yeah.
He says that instead of trying to control all the steps, we should learn to just surrender to the rhythm.
Love that.
Like enjoy the movement itself, rather than fixating on some destination.
Absolutely. It's about letting go of those rigid plans and expectations and allowing life to unfold.
And I bet our bodies are actually pretty good dancers. They instinctively know how to move, how to adapt, how to flow.
That's so true. So often, it's our thoughts, our fears that prevent us from fully experiencing the joy and spontaneity of life's dance.
So listening to the body's wisdom is also about rediscovering that playfulness,
Yes.
that movement.
Absolutely. It's about reclaiming that joy and aliveness that's already within us.
Okay, so for our listener, let's bring this back to everyday life. How can we actually apply these ideas about the body's wisdom and embracing uncertainty? What are some tangible things we can do?
That's a great question. And it leads perfectly into the next part of our deep dive, where we'll explore some specific practices and techniques for tapping into the body's wisdom.
Stay tuned. We'll uncover some practical tools for navigating the complexities of modern life with grace, resilience, and a newfound sense of trust in that wisdom within each of us. All right, so we've been talking about all these amazing ideas from Alan Watts: insecurity, the present moment, the body's wisdom. But I have to admit, sometimes it feels a little overwhelming. Like, how do we actually put this into practice? We're not all Zen masters living in a monastery.
That's true. It's easy to get lost in the intellectual side of things, but the real transformation happens when we embody these concepts.
So, how can we actually tap into the body's wisdom?
Yeah.
How do we cultivate that sense of presence and trust that we've been discussing?
Well, one of the simplest but most powerful practices is mindful breathing. Just taking a few moments throughout the day to pause. Close your eyes and really bring your attention to the sensation of your breath.
Okay, I've heard of mindful breathing before. I have to be honest, I often forget to do it. But why is it so effective?
Because it's like hitting the reset button. It calms your nervous system, grounds you in the present, and increases your awareness of your body's signals.
So it's not just about taking deep breaths, it's about actually paying attention to the sensations.
Exactly. It's about cultivating this curiosity, this non-judgmental awareness, just noticing the rise and fall of your chest, the coolness of the air as you inhale, the warmth as you exhale.
Right, and I can see how that would shift your attention away from the mental chatter and bring you back to the present moment.
And as you practice, you'll start to notice that your breath can actually tell you a lot about your emotional state.
Oh, interesting.
When you're anxious, your breath might be shallow and rapid, but when you're relaxed, it naturally deepens and slows down.
So we're not just calming the nervous system, we're also gaining insights into how we're actually feeling.
Exactly.
Cool. What else can we try?
Well, mindful movement is another great practice. That could be anything from yoga, tai chi, even just a walk in nature.
Okay.
The key is to bring awareness to the present moment and to the sensations of your body as you move.
So it's not just about exercising for fitness, but really tuning in and noticing how it feels.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be strenuous. Even gentle stretching or walking can be really beneficial. Just approach it with curiosity, noticing how your muscles feel, the ease or tension in your joints, the flow of energy.
I like that. It's like you're becoming more familiar with your own body,
Mhm.
appreciating its strength and flexibility.
Exactly. And you might even start to notice habitual patterns of tension that you hold in your body, which can reflect underlying stress.
So by paying attention to the physical, we can actually gain insights into the emotional and mental as well.
Absolutely. It's a holistic approach, recognizing the interconnectedness of it all.
Right. So it's not about separating those different parts of ourselves,
Yeah.
but seeing them all as part of a whole.
Yes. And by working with the body, we can often release patterns that might be hard to address just through thinking.
That makes me think about how often we try to solve our problems by just thinking and analyzing. But maybe the answers are actually in our bodies.
That's a great point. True wisdom isn't always something we get just from our intellect.
Okay.
It comes from experience, from mindful awareness, from honoring the wisdom that's already there, especially within our bodies.
So mindful breathing, mindful movement, what other practices can we explore?
Well, spending time in nature is incredibly powerful.
Oh, for sure. I feel that.
It calms the nervous system, grounds you in the present moment, reminds you of your connection to something larger.
I know that whenever I'm feeling overwhelmed, a walk in the woods or by the ocean just makes me feel so much better.
There's actually a lot of research now that shows how beneficial nature is. Reduces stress hormones, lowers blood pressure, even boosts your immune system.
Wow, that's incredible. Like our bodies just know that we're part of this bigger web of life.
Right. And beyond those physical benefits, there's this sense of beauty and wonder that nature evokes, which can nourish us on a deeper level.
I love that. Like nature's this constant reminder that there's something much bigger at play, something that transcends our everyday worries.
Exactly. And as we connect more deeply with nature, we tap into a source of wisdom and resilience.
And this is all so inspiring. It's like we're remembering that we have the tools to navigate life's challenges.
That's the heart of Watts' message, isn't it? To empower us to live more authentically, to embrace the unknown with curiosity, and to trust in the wisdom that's both within us and all around us.
And that wisdom, that intelligence, isn't something we need to search for in some far-off place. It's right here, right now, in our own bodies.
It is. It's a simple truth, but so profound. And once we realize that, life becomes so much more meaningful.
You know, I think that's a beautiful place to wrap up our deep dive today.
It has been a joy to explore these ideas with you.
And to you, our listener, we encourage you to continue this journey. Experiment, read Watts's work, see what resonates with you. It's an ongoing adventure. Be kind to yourself, be curious, be open, and most importantly, trust in the wisdom that's already within you.
Beautifully said.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the wisdom of insecurity. Until next time, keep exploring.
Follow the infinite within with Cecilia to explore profound insights on pantheism. Embrace the oneness of existence and unlock the mysteries within you.